Jagdeo says no preferential treatment given to Ed Ahmad for land purchases. News source Guyana. Vice President Barrett Jagdeo addressed recent concerns regarding the government's commercial land sale policy, particularly in relation to the sale of prime lands to associates of the ruling party. At a press conference at Freedom House, Jagdeo dismissed claims of preferential treatment for friends and associates of the PPP, specifically in reference to Ed Ahmad, a U.S. Guyanese real estate magnate convicted of mortgage fraud. Jagdeo confirmed that Ahmad purchased prime land in the Ogle area but insisted that the transaction was legitimate and conducted fairly. He emphasized that there was no preferential treatment involved, urging the Ahmad family to keep the PPP out of their family disputes. Was there any preferential treatment of this individual because of connections to the PPP? The answer is absolutely not, he stated. The Sheriff Group of companies, which has been acquiring large parcels of land and opening businesses, has distanced itself from Ahmad, despite being owned by his relatives. Jagdeo criticized the opposition APNU plus AFC for their land management practices while in power, claiming they sold and leased state lands to individuals close to them, including current AFC leader Nigel Hughes. He noted that while the government has allocated land for private development, none of the recipients, including Ahmad, have yet received titles. All parties involved have paid $30 million per acre, consistent with the previous government's pricing. Jagdeo defended the principle that individuals perceived to be close to the PPP should also benefit from state resources, stating he has no apologies for this stance. Earlier in the week, Sherwin Greaves, the chief executive officer of the Central Housing and Planning Authority, resigned amid scrutiny over his approval of land sales to Ahmad and property purchases in New York linked to Ahmad. Jagdeo praised Greaves' work at the Housing Ministry, but stated that he must provide credible explanations regarding his property acquisitions. The vice president affirmed that if any laws were broken by Greaves or Ahmad, they must face consequences. He added that the government has not yet decided whether to investigate the land deals or property purchases, while Greaves assured the government that his funding sources were legitimate and chose to resign due to public scrutiny. No student should be sent home over hairstyle, Manikchand reinforces. Guyana Times. Education Minister Priya Manikchand has reiterated that no student should be sent home due to hairstyle violations, following a recent incident where a parent claimed her child was dismissed from school for breaching hairstyle guidelines. In a written response to Guyana Times, Minister Manikchand emphasized the ministry's position. The ministry reiterates that children should not be sent home and/or denied an education because of any perceived or actual hairstyle breach of rule. She acknowledged the importance of respecting school dress codes and hairstyle regulations, which are typically established through consultations with stakeholders, including parents, teachers, and students. The minister urged parents to understand that these rules are created for the best interest of the children and are guided by broader ministry guidelines. She reminded that following these rules is essential for maintaining an educational environment. 2 years ago, the Education Ministry issued a memorandum stating that students must not be sent home over hairstyle concerns. Head teachers were reminded that their primary responsibility is to ensure that all learners are in school and receiving education. If a student is deemed to have an inappropriate hairstyle, the school should invite the parent or guardian for a discussion. In September 2023, Minister Manikchand made it clear that any individual sending a child home over hairstyle issues would face disciplinary action. The parent who raised the recent concern reported that her daughter, a grade 8 student at Yarrow Cabra Secondary School, was removed from class due to her hairstyle being deemed distracting to the boys. When confronted, the teacher allegedly suggested that if the parents were unhappy with the school rules, they should consider homeschooling their daughter. Minister Manikchand's reiterated stance aims to ensure that educational access remains a priority, regardless of hairstyle choices. Lorry driver loses control of vehicle, collides with GPL pole, car. Police are investigating an accident that occurred at approximately 10:45 HRS today, Thursday, February 6, 2025, on Lusignan Public Road, East Coast, Demerara. The incident involved motor lorry number GAH 5392, driven by 28-year-old Atash Singh from number 71 Village in Correntine Burbus, and motorcar number PYY 6812, owned and driven by 31-year-old Jamila Kelvin from Norton Street, Workmanville, Georgetown. Inquiries revealed that the lorry driver was proceeding east along the northern carriageway at a high speed when he lost control of his vehicle. The lorry collided with a GPL pole located at the center of the road and subsequently struck motorcar number PYY 6812, which was traveling west on the southern carriageway. The impact caused the lorry to further collide with a house post on the side of Lusignan Public Road. The ambulance service was summoned, and emergency medical technicians arrived to render assistance. Both drivers were conscious and were transported to the Georgetown Public Hospital's Accident and Emergency Unit for further treatment. The investigation into the accident is ongoing. Prison officer granted bail for narcotic trafficking. Guyana News. Andrew Stevens, a 30-year-old prison officer from Durban Street Lodge, has been granted bail in the amount of $400,000 on a charge of possession of narcotics for the purpose of trafficking. Stevens appeared before Chief Magistrate Faith McGusty at the Georgetown Magistrates Court. He is accused of possessing 498.95 grams of cannabis on February 1, 2025. His attorney, Gordon Gilhuys, requested reasonable bail, highlighting that Stevens had no previous criminal record and had already spent 48 hours in police custody. He noted that the narcotics were discovered while Stevens was in custody. The prosecution objected to bail, citing the seriousness of the offense and stating that the cannabis was found in Stevens' bedroom. The prosecutor mentioned that when questioned, Stevens claimed, "Is me thing I buy from Suriname." This search was part of an investigation into computer-related fraud conducted by officers from the Criminal Investigation Department, CID. During the proceedings, Magistrate McGusty asked whether Stevens was in custody for another offense and whether he lived alone. The prosecutor confirmed that he was indeed in custody for a separate matter and resided with his girlfriend, mother-in-law, and child, with the women denying any involvement with the drugs. Stevens was granted bail with the condition that he report to the CID on the last Friday of every month. He is scheduled to return to court on February 26, 2025. Clerk charged with forging checks worth over $23 million. Guyana News. Dharmendra Gondat, a 25-year-old clerk employed at Edward B. Behari and Company Ltd., appeared at the Georgetown Magistrates Court on charges of forgery against his employer. Gondat, residing at Lot 679, 17th Street, Foolis, East Coast Demerara, is accused of forging 2 checks from the Guyana Bank for Trade and Industry, GBTI. The checks falsely indicated amounts withdrawn by Behari Restaurant Holding Incorporated, including one for $23,500,000 and another for $48,500, allegedly forged on July 25, 2024, at the Vlissingen Road branch in Georgetown. He pleaded not guilty to both charges when read by Acting Chief Magistrate Faith McGusty. Defense argument. Attorney Dominic Bess, representing Gondat, requested reasonable bail, emphasizing that his client had no previous convictions or pending matters and was not a flight risk. Bess argued that Gondat discovered the fraudulent transactions and reported them, claiming he was wrongfully implicated as other individuals involved had not been charged. He contended that there was no direct evidence linking Gondat to the forgeries, stating that he did not receive the checks and that they were signed by a senior colleague. Bess highlighted Gondat's cooperation with investigators since the probe began in August 2024. Prosecution's response. The prosecution opposed bail, citing the serious nature of the offenses. They noted that Gondat was never authorized by the company to issue the checks and that the company was unaware of who received the funds. The prosecutor admitted that the investigation was ongoing and necessary statements from the company were still pending. Bail granted. Magistrate McGusty ultimately granted bail for a total of $200,000, $50,000 for the $48,500 check and $150,000 for the $23.5 million check. Gondat is scheduled to return to court on March 12, 2025. Burbus driver granted bail for causing death of 9-year-old. Newsroom. Nearly 6 months after the tragic death of 9-year-old Avinash Charam from Alness Village, Quarantine, Burbus, legal proceedings have commenced against the driver involved in the incident. Curtis Court, a 21-year-old resident of Lot 1429 Glasgow Housing Scheme, appeared before Magistrate Ravindra Mohabir at the Fort Wellington Magistrates Court and pleaded not guilty to the charge of causing death by dangerous driving. The prosecution did not object to bail, leading Magistrate Mohabir to set it at $500,000 with conditions, including that Court must report to the Sisters Police Station monthly. His driver's license has also been suspended pending the outcome of the case. The accident occurred on August 29, 2024, at approximately 1:45 HRS on Armadale Public Road, West Coast, Burbus. Court was driving motorcar #PAE 3462 eastward when he attempted to negotiate a left bend and collided with motorcar #PG 3611, driven by 31-year-old Jose Teixeira, who was traveling in the opposite direction. Passengers in Teixeira's vehicle included Jeffrey Mutu, Lokman Charam, and Avinash Charam. The collision resulted in injuries to both drivers and the passengers. Following the incident, all individuals were taken to Fort Wellington Public Hospital for treatment. Avinash Charam was diagnosed with a fractured right leg, while Teixeira suffered fractured ribs. Both were later referred to New Amsterdam Public Hospital in stable condition. Tragically, Avinash succumbed to his injuries while receiving medical care. The case has been adjourned until February 27, 2024, for the exchange of statements and scheduling of further proceedings. Man goes to court on assault charge, ends up being remanded for disturbing magistrate. Guyana News. A 58-year-old man found himself in an unfortunate situation after disrupting court proceedings at the Georgetown Magistrates Court, resulting in his remand to prison. Gordon Lucas, of Lot 73 Lamaha Street, Newtown, Georgetown, was waiting for his assault case to be called when he interrupted the proceedings, stating that he needed to go to the Georgetown Public Hospital for an 11 o'clock HRS appointment. In consideration of his request, Acting Chief Magistrate Faith McGusty paused the previous cases and began to read his charge. The charge indicated that on September 27, 2024, at the GPHC, Lucas assaulted Clarissa James. He pleaded not guilty, explaining that he had only retaliated after James assaulted him. "She knock me and I knock she back," Lucas stated. He further added, "Me ain't get mother, I is a big man." In response, Magistrate McGusty inquired if he still wished to go to the hospital, to which Lucas replied, "Yes, please." Despite his earlier disruption, he was granted $10,000 bail and scheduled to return for further proceedings on February 12, 2025. However, in an unexpected turn of events, Lucas became frustrated while waiting to sign for his bail and began complaining in court, disturbing the session. Magistrate McGusty then paused her case and addressed Lucas, stating, "Since you want to disrupt this court schedule, I am going to disrupt your schedule." Bail is refused. You are remanded into prison. Upon hearing this, Lucas pleaded for mercy, repeatedly apologizing to the magistrate. Nevertheless, Magistrate McGusty reminded him of her earlier consideration in prioritizing his case. As a result, Lucas, who was initially expected to leave early for his hospital appointment, now faces a week in prison until his return date. Man jailed for 2 years on narcotics possession charge. Guyana News. A 50-year-old man was sentenced to 2 years in prison when he appeared at the Georgetown Magistrates Court on a charge of possession of narcotics for the purpose of trafficking. Ray Peters was charged with possessing 5 grams of cocaine, an offense that occurred on February 3, 2025, on Brickdam in Georgetown. Peters pleaded guilty after the charge was read to him by Acting Chief Magistrate Faith McGusty. When asked if he admitted to being in possession of illegal substances, Peters agreed. The magistrate then confirmed his understanding that cocaine is illegal, to which he responded affirmatively. The prosecution stated that police were on patrol in the Stabroek Market area when they observed Peters behaving suspiciously. Upon approaching him for a search, Peters produced a white container and threw it on the ground. The officer retrieved the container, which contained a substance wrapped in paper. Peters was subsequently escorted to the Albertown police station. The substance was confirmed to be cocaine weighing 5 grams, with a street value of $7,500. In court, Peters initially claimed, "It wasn't mine, I picked it up from the side of a truck." However, he later admitted that the cocaine belonged to him and that he was using it for back pain. Taking into account Peters' age, Magistrate McGusty sentenced him to 2 years in prison and imposed a fine of $7,500. Norton names nominees for Local Government Commission. Newsroom. Opposition leader Aubrey Norton has formally submitted 3 nominees to sit on the Local Government Commission: Mr. Sherwin C. Benjamin, Ms. Joan and Ramsindo, and Ms. Nicole Trotman. However, before the appointments can be finalized, Norton has been requested to provide additional information, including the curriculum vitae of the nominees. The issue was raised during discussions on the 2025 budget estimates for the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development on Tuesday. Opposition Member of Parliament, MP, Ganesh Mahapal, inquired about when the Local Government Commission would be sworn in. In response, Minister Sonia Parag stated that the process had already begun and a letter had been sent to the Leader of the Opposition, but there had been no response from Norton. This led MP Mahapal to assert that Norton had indeed responded, presenting 2 pieces of correspondence to substantiate his position during a subsequent Committee of Supply sitting. Government Chief Whip Gail Teixeira interjected, claiming that Norton had not responded to her. Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance, who attended the session virtually, explained that Norton has a history of bypassing her ministry, which is responsible for handling correspondence regarding constitutional appointments. Teixeira noted that this issue had recurred, as Norton often responds directly to the president or through an intermediary, instead of acknowledging her communications. Teixeira expressed her surprise at being unaware of the opposition's nominees until Monday. Upon learning of them, she instructed one of the presidential secretaries to request the nominees' resumes from Norton. She further emphasized that had she anticipated the question posed to Minister Parag, she would have informed her in advance to avoid confusion in the House. Teixeira concluded by urging Norton to provide his responses to her communications, rather than disregarding them, and to recognize her role in the correspondence on behalf of the president. Nigel Hughes secures 75 acres of land from APNU plus AFC after no confidence motion. Newsroom. Vice President Dr. Barrett Jagdeo revealed that Nigel Hughes, the current leader of the Alliance for Change, AFC, was granted 75 acres of land following the APNU plus AFC coalition's loss in the no-confidence motion and the 2020 elections. This information was disclosed during Jagdeo's weekly press conference, where he shared legal documents related to the land leases. According to the documents, Hughes was first granted permission to lease 25 acres of state land on the left bank of the Essequibo River near Groot Creek on October 24, 2019, shortly after the Caribbean Court of Justice, CCJ, ruled that the coalition was defeated in December 2018. Additionally, on March 19, 2020, just 2 weeks after the March 2 elections, Hughes secured 2 more provisional leases for 25 acres each in the same area. Jagdeo noted that these lands were primarily designated for agricultural purposes, with an annual rent of $800 Guyanese per acre. Jagdeo criticized Hughes for urging the PPP/C government to halt land transactions during an election year, despite benefiting from land grants during a transitional government period. He described Hughes as duplicitous for advocating against land deals while having secured significant land holdings himself. Furthermore, Jagdeo addressed concerns raised by Hughes regarding commercial land sales in Ogle. He pointed out that, prior to the 2020 elections, Hughes represented a Trinidadian company that acquired 20 acres of land at Ogle for $26 million per acre. Jagdeo highlighted the inconsistency in Hughes's stance, noting the low prices at which he acquired land compared to current valuations. Jagdeo also mentioned that the same Trinidadian company paid $10 million per acre for 10 acres at Earl's Court for luxury apartments, which have yet to be constructed, implying potential penalties under their agreement. He emphasized Hughes's dual role as both the company's lawyer and a director, leading to further questions about his involvement and the lack of development. Both Dr. Jagdeo and President Dr. Irfan Ali defended the PPP/C government's land and housing policies amid these allegations. GCOM chair open to digital fingerprints capture, but not before upcoming elections. News source Guyana. Chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission, GCOM, Justice, Retted, Claudette Singh, has expressed openness to the idea of implementing digital fingerprint capture during voter registration. However, she emphasized that such a system would not be introduced before the upcoming general and regional elections, which are constitutionally due this year. During a meeting on February 4, 2025, Justice Singh noted that the National Registration Act, amended by Act 14 of 2005, empowers the Commission to determine procedures for the electronic processing of data, indicating that there are no legal barriers to adopting digital fingerprint technology. Despite her support for the technology, she highlighted the necessity of ensuring adequate legislation concerning the security of the fingerprints and the importance of hiring a technical consultant to guide the process. For us to do this in a comprehensive manner, it would be necessary for us to hire a suitable technical consultant to advise us on the way forward, she stated. Justice Singh outlined that the first step would involve defining the project objectives and scope, which would lead to the hiring of a consultant who would prepare a detailed project plan considering technological, legal, financial, and operational factors. However, she made it clear that the introduction of digital fingerprint capture cannot coincide with the preparations for the elections due to various logistical challenges, including technical considerations and the need for political and social acceptance. The conduct of both projects simultaneously will introduce logistical complexities involved in managing 2 major initiatives at once, she explained. Justice Singh underscored that GCOM's primary responsibility is to prepare for and conduct the elections in strict compliance with existing laws and international standards. She asserted that any discussions regarding biometric fingerprint capture should be postponed until after the elections to ensure that the Commission can focus fully on its constitutional responsibilities.